At 9:17 on a snowy Manhattan night, every lock inside Crown Meridian Bank clicked open, except the one Claire Donovan refused to touch. The bank had already closed. The marble lobby was empty, except for armed security officers. Frightened executives gathered around a conference screen, and 6 men in dark overcoats standing beneath the gold clock above the teller windows. Snow pressed against the glass doors in wet white sheets. Black SUVs idled along Madison Avenue. Beyond them, 2 police cruisers remained parked at the curb, with their lights flashing but their officers still inside. No one wanted to enter the building. Claire stood between Dante Valenti and the steel corridor leading to the private vaults. Her pulse beat hard enough to hurt, but her voice remained level. The authorization is invalid. No one moved. Claire was 34, with dark auburn hair pinned at the back of her head, intelligent gray-green eyes, and a full, softly curved figure beneath a tailored navy suit. She had spent 11 years learning how powerful men behaved when they believed rules applied only to other people. They usually raised their voices. Dante Valenti did not. He stood less than 6 feet from her, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal overcoat over an immaculate black suit. Snow melted along the dark strands of his hair. His expression was controlled, almost detached, but his eyes held the cold concentration of a man accustomed to deciding how every confrontation ended. He extended a document toward her. "My attorneys obtained the order 30 minutes ago." Claire did not take it again. She had already examined every page. "The court order gives you access to property registered in your name. Vault 7A is registered to Isabella Valenti." A silence passed through the lobby. Even the executives on the conference screen stopped whispering. Everyone in Manhattan knew that name. Isabella Valenti had been Dante's wife. She had died 14 years earlier. Dante's gaze did not leave Claire's face. "She was my wife. She was also the sole registered renter of that vault. My wife is dead. That doesn't transfer ownership without probate authorization." One of the board members leaned toward the camera. "Ms. Donovan, this is not the time for procedural rigidity." Claire turned toward the screen. "Procedural rigidity is what prevents a bank from surrendering private property to the most intimidating person in the room." The security chief lowered his eyes. Dante's men did not react, but the atmosphere changed around them. Claire felt it in the stillness of their bodies. The board chairman appeared in the center of the screen. Malcolm Voss was silver-haired, elegant, and 62 years old. He had recruited Claire when she was a junior compliance analyst and taught her that trust was the only product a bank truly sold. Tonight, his familiar face offered no comfort. "Claire," Malcolm said gently, "open the vault." She stared at the man whose advice had guided nearly every important decision of her career. "Do you have the second authorization?" His expression tightened. "The board is directing you to cooperate." "That isn't what I asked. Your refusal could expose the bank to catastrophic liability. My compliance could expose our client's estate to theft." Dante took one measured step closer. The men behind him remained still. Claire could smell winter air on his coat and the faint, clean trace of cedar beneath it. "Are you accusing me of theft?" he asked. "I'm telling you that your name does not open that door." For the first time, something moved behind his composure. Not anger, interest. His eyes traveled over her face as though he were trying to understand what kind of woman remained standing when an entire room had already surrendered. "Do you know what is inside the vault?" he asked. "No. Has anyone opened it since my wife died?" "Not according to the access records. And you believe those records?" "I believe records can be tested. Fear cannot." Malcolm's voice sharpened through the speakers. "Claire, step aside." She looked back at the screen. "No." The word landed with more force than a shout. A security officer shifted near the corridor. Another looked toward Dante, waiting for an instruction. Dante gave none. Instead, he removed one black leather glove and reached into his coat. Every security officer tensed. He withdrew a phone. "Matteo," he said without looking away from Claire. "How much?" A man near the entrance answered quietly. Crown Meridian's controlling block is held through 3 institutional funds. 2 are vulnerable. The third belongs to Voss. Malcolm went pale on the screen. Dante pressed the phone to his ear. Buy the first two. Offer the third enough that refusal becomes an act of pride rather than business. You cannot purchase a federally regulated bank in the middle of the night, Malcolm said. Dante's gaze remained on Claire. No, he replied calmly, but I can purchase the holding company that controls it. Claire should have thought it was theater. Then phones began ringing. One board member disappeared from the screen. Another turned away, speaking urgently to someone outside the camera. Stock alerts flashed across the financial display near the teller counters. Dante waited. Claire stood her ground. At 10:03, the bank's general counsel called. At 10:41, one institutional fund accepted Dante's tender. At 11:16, the second agreed to sell. At 11:48, Malcolm Voss's private holding company transferred its controlling shares for a price so high that 3 financial networks interrupted their scheduled programming to report it. At 11:53, Dante Valenti became the majority owner of Crown Meridian Financial Group. He did not smile. He merely handed Claire a new authorization signed by the emergency board, the bank's counsel, and an independent probate judge. The document named her temporary custodian of Vault 7A. Only Claire Donovan could open it. Dante watched her read every line. "Is this sufficient?" he asked. She looked up at him. "Yes." "Then open the vault." Claire turned toward the steel corridor. The lights above the private vaults glowed pale against the polished floor. Dante walked beside her. His men followed at a distance, leaving the two of them alone inside the narrow passage. Vault 7A required a bank key, a private key, and a biometric confirmation from the custodian. Dante produced Isabella's key from a chain beneath his shirt. For the first time, his hand was not completely steady. Claire pretended not to notice. She inserted the bank key. He inserted Isabella's. They turned them together. The inner lock released with a deep mechanical sound. Behind the door was not money. There were no diamonds, bearer bonds, or weapons. A child's red winter coat lay folded on a black velvet shelf. Beside it sat a stack of sealed adoption records, a silver memory card, and a single photograph inside a cracked glass frame. Dante stopped breathing. Claire lifted the photograph carefully. It showed a younger Dante seated beside a hospital window, his face exhausted and unguarded. In his arms was a newborn wrapped in a cream blanket. A handwritten date appeared along the bottom. February 17th. 3 days before the hospital fire that had killed Isabella and their infant daughter. On the back, someone had written 6 words. She lived. Malcolm knows where she is. Claire's fingers went cold. Dante took the photograph from her. The feared man who had bought a bank in less than 3 hours stared at the baby's face as though the world had opened beneath his feet. Behind them, the vault corridor lights went out. A gunshot shattered the glass at the far end of the hall. Dante moved before Claire understood what was happening. He caught her around the waist, pulled her against the solid wall of his body, and turned so that his back covered her completely. More shots struck the steel door. The photograph remained clenched in his hand. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was no longer cold. It was lethal. Emergency lights flashed red through the corridor. 2 security officers appeared at the far entrance, but they were not aiming at Dante. They were aiming at Claire. Dante fired once. The first man fell behind the wall. Matteo and the other Valenti guards surged into the corridor as alarms screamed through the bank. Dante pressed Claire lower and guided her toward the vault. She reached for the red coat and records. "Leave them," he ordered. "They're the reason they're shooting. They are not worth your life. They may be worth your daughter's." His eyes locked on hers. For one dangerous second, neither moved. Then Dante swept the records into a leather document case, seized the red coat, and closed one hand around Claire's wrist. "Run." They escaped through an old currency transfer passage beneath the bank, as gunfire echoed through the marble floors above them. Claire had entered the vault believing rules were the only defense ordinary people possessed against men like Dante Valenti. By the time he pulled her into an armored car beneath the falling snow, she understood something worse. Someone had designed the rules specifically to keep his daughter dead. and Claire's own signature appeared on every document that had helped them do it. _ The armored SUV moved south through midnight traffic, while snow buried Manhattan beneath white silence. Claire sat across from Dante in the rear compartment, the leather document case secured between them. Matteo Rinaldi occupied the front passenger seat, speaking in clipped Italian into a phone. 2 more vehicles surrounded them. Dante still held the photograph. He had not looked away from it for more than a few seconds. Claire opened the top adoption file. Emilia Isabella Valenti, she read. Female. Born February 17th. Dante's jaw tightened. She weighed 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Claire lifted her eyes. You remember. I remember everything. His answer closed the subject. She examined the next page. A death certificate had been issued on February 20th, the night of the hospital fire. 8 days later, a second document transferred an unnamed female infant from a private maternity clinic to the St. Catherine Family Foundation. The child had then moved through 4 identities in 6 months. Emilia Valenti, Anna Bell, Mara Lane, finally, Mia Ward. Claire turned another page and froze. At the bottom was a custodial review certification from Crown Meridian Bank. Her employee number appeared beside the signature. That isn't mine. Dante looked up. The identification number belongs to you. The handwriting doesn't. You certified the account remained dormant. I did no such thing. You expect me to believe someone selected your credentials by accident? Anger rose through Claire's fear. I refused to open your vault while every person in that building begged me to surrender. Does that seem like the behavior of someone involved in hiding your child? It could be the behavior of someone protecting herself. Then why leave my forged signature inside a vault no one expected you to open? Dante said nothing. Claire leaned forward. Someone wanted you to find my name, or wanted me to find you. The words settled between them. The SUV turned beneath the stone archway of a private residence on the Upper East Side. Iron gates closed behind the convoy. Dante's home occupied an entire limestone mansion facing Central Park. There were no visible guards, but Claire saw cameras beneath the eaves and dark figures behind the second-floor windows. Dante took the case. You'll remain here until I determine who attacked the bank. I'm going home. No. You bought my employer. You did not buy me. His eyes darkened. The men in that corridor were Crown Meridian security officers. They aimed at you before they aimed at me. I noticed. Your apartment is already being examined. You sent men into my home? I sent men to keep you alive, without asking. I did not have time to request permission from a woman who argues while bullets strike the wall behind her. Claire stepped closer, despite the warning in his expression. My life is not one of your accounts, Mr. Valenti. You do not control it, because you consider yourself better qualified. His gaze lowered briefly to her mouth, before returning to her eyes. Dante, what? You have challenged me, accused me of theft, and cost me $4 billion. Calling me Mr. Valenti now seems excessively formal. I did not cost you $4 billion. You refused to open a door. You chose to buy the building around it. Something almost human moved at the corner of his mouth, but it vanished before becoming a smile. Matteo entered behind them. We found the shooter's vehicle. It belongs to a private contractor used by Malcolm Voss. Claire's anger drained into disbelief. That's impossible. Dante removed his overcoat. Nothing is impossible when enough money depends on it. Malcolm taught me everything I know about banking law. He also ordered you to open the vault. He may have been protecting the institution. He sold me his controlling interest while men under his authority tried to kill you. Claire wanted to defend Malcolm. The instinct came automatically, built from 11 years of loyalty. But she remembered his face on the screen. Open the vault, not verify the order, not protect the client. Just obey. Dante placed the red coat on a long walnut table. It was small enough for a child of 5 or 6, not an infant. The wool had faded slightly, but silver stars were sewn along the cuffs. Claire touched one carefully. This means whoever placed it in the vault had contact with Emilia years after the fire. Dante stood across from her. My daughter would be 14. The first time he said the word daughter, his voice roughened. Claire examined the coat's lining. One seam had been repaired with thread that did not match. She found a narrow pocket beneath it. Inside was a brass deposit key and a strip of paper bearing a sequence of numbers. Dante leaned closer. His shoulder nearly touched hers. Claire became aware of his warmth, the faint scent of snow still clinging to him, and the disciplined stillness with which he held himself. She handed him the paper. Safe deposit number? No Crown Meridian branch uses this format. I know a bank that did. He looked at her. The Metropolitan Immigrant Trust closed 20 years ago. Crown Meridian purchased its remaining accounts and sealed the physical archive beneath Grand Central. You can access it? I manage the consolidation records. Dante studied her for a moment. You are either the most valuable person Malcolm placed in my path, or the most dangerous. Claire met his gaze. You still think I'm involved? I think coincidence is a story told by people who benefit from confusion. And what do you think I benefit from? His eyes moved over her face more slowly than before. That is what I intend to discover. A phone vibrated on the table. It was Claire's. A message had arrived from an unknown number. She opened it. The screen displayed a photograph of her apartment, taken through the window. A red circle had been drawn around her bedroom. Beneath it were 5 words. You opened the wrong grave. Dante took the phone from her hand. The coldness returned to his face. But now it carried something personal. Matteo, his lieutenant, appeared immediately. Lock the house. No one enters without my approval. Claire reached for her phone. Dante did not return it. You will stay here. She looked toward the snow darkening the windows. For the first time that night, she did not argue. Claire did not sleep. Dante gave her a guest suite on the mansion's 3rd floor, where pale silk walls and antique furniture made the room feel more like a carefully preserved hotel than someone's home. There were guards outside both ends of the hallway. At 2 in the morning, Claire found a camera above the sitting room door. Dante was in his study when she entered without knocking. He had removed his jacket and tie. His black shirt was open at the throat, revealing a narrow line of ink disappearing beneath the collar. The photograph of Amelia rested on the desk beside an untouched glass of whiskey. Turn off the cameras. He looked up from the adoption records. The camera covers the entrance. It covers half the room. It has no audio. That is not reassuring. I will have it repositioned. Removed. No. Claire folded her arms. You have an unhealthy relationship with that word, he said. It has served me well tonight. It nearly got you killed. No, your secrets nearly got me killed. His expression changed. Claire immediately understood she had struck something deeper than anger. Dante rose. He crossed the room slowly, until only the width of the desk separated them. My wife called me from St. Aurelia Hospital 17 minutes before the fire, he said. She told me someone had changed the guards outside her room. I was across the city. By the time I reached the building, the maternity wing was burning. Claire remained silent. I found Isabella in a service corridor. She was alive for 6 minutes. Pain entered his voice and disappeared so quickly she might have imagined it. She told me our daughter had been taken. Then a nurse brought me a body wrapped in a blanket. Claire's throat tightened. You never saw the baby's face. The burns made identification impossible. You believed them. I believed my wife had died trying to reach her. Dante looked toward the photograph. I buried a casket small enough to carry in one hand. The control in his face frightened Claire more than rage would have. 14 years of grief had hardened around him, until it resembled indifference. I'm sorry, she said. I did not tell you for sympathy. I know. You asked what my secrets cost you. That is one of them. Claire looked at the forged certification bearing her name. My father died when I was 19, she said. He left debts no one knew about. We nearly lost our apartment. My mother spent 2 years arguing with banks that treated us like numbers attached to a failing account. Dante listened. That's why I follow procedures, she continued. Not because I think institutions are honest, because ordinary people cannot buy their way around dishonesty. Rules are sometimes the only power they have. And when the rules are written by Malcolm Voss, then I find the truth and destroy the men abusing them. Dante's gaze held hers. For one suspended moment, they were not a bank manager and a mafia boss. They were two people who had built their lives around different responses to helplessness. Claire stepped closer to the desk. "We need to open the Metropolitan Archive. It may be a trap." "It is definitely a trap. That does not seem to concern you." "It concerns me. I'm simply going anyway." A faint line appeared between his brows. "You mistake courage for a lack of fear." "No, I know exactly how frightened I am." His eyes lowered to her hand resting beside the photograph. He almost touched it. Claire saw the impulse in the slight movement of his fingers. Then he withdrew. "I will remove the camera," he said. It felt strangely more intimate than a promise of protection. They entered the abandoned Metropolitan Immigrant Trust archive shortly before dawn. The branch had once occupied a vaulted chamber beneath Grand Central Terminal, connected to the main concourse by a service elevator no longer shown on public plans. Dust covered the marble counters. Brass cages divided empty teller stations. Beyond them, thousands of deposit drawers disappeared into darkness. Claire wore a black wool coat borrowed from Dante's housekeeper. It fit her shoulders, but pulled slightly across her curves. Dante noticed her adjusting it and removed his own overcoat. "I don't need yours. I did not ask." He placed it around her shoulders. The coat was warm and heavy. It smelled like cedar and winter. Claire looked up at him. "You are very controlling, I have been told. Frequently, usually by people who continue breathing because I ignored them." She should have been frightened. Instead, an unwilling warmth moved through her. Matteo found the numbered drawer. The brass key opened it. Inside was a child's drawing of 3 people standing beneath silver stars. A tall man in black, a woman with red hair, a little girl between them. Claire stared at the woman. "She looks like me." Dante's expression hardened. The resemblance was crude, perhaps meaningless, but the red-haired figure had been drawn with a rounded body and green eyes. Beneath the drawing lay a microfilm reel and a handwritten ledger. Claire carried them to an old reading machine in the back office. The microfilm contained copies of trust documents dated before Amelia's birth. Isabella Valenti had created the Astor Trust, an irrevocable structure holding shares in Crown Meridian, a commercial shipping network, and 11 Manhattan properties. The beneficiary was her first surviving child. At 18, that child would assume voting control. If the beneficiary were legally declared dead, the assets would be divided among 5 criminal families and the bank's private holding company. Claire read the final page twice. A presumption of death petition was filed yesterday. Dante stood behind her. "How long?" "The hearing is in 72 hours." "Who filed it?" "Malcolm Voss, acting as independent trustee." Dante became completely still. Claire continued through the ledger. For 14 years, money had moved from the trust into shell companies connected to the Caruso, Albani, Petrov, and Serrano organizations. Each transfer required a yearly custodial certification. For the last 6 years, Claire's credentials had been used. "They chose me because I have the strongest compliance record in the bank," she said quietly. "If regulators reviewed these files, my name would make the certifications look legitimate." Dante leaned over her shoulder. The physical nearness of him made the air feel smaller. "You were selected before tonight." "Yes." "Which means Malcolm expected the vault to open eventually. Or he expected you to find me when it did." A sound moved through the dark teller hall. Not footsteps, metal scraping against stone. Dante straightened. Down. The first explosion shattered the outer service door. Men in gray tactical clothing entered through the smoke. Dante pulled Claire behind the projection machine as bullets tore through the old office windows. Matteo and the Valenti guards returned fire from behind the brass teller cages. The microfilm reel rolled across the floor. Claire saw one of the attackers moving toward it. She crawled from cover. Dante caught the back of her coat and dragged her against him. "What are you doing?" "Saving the evidence. You have a remarkable talent for choosing documents over survival. Those documents may lead us to Amelia." His grip tightened. A bullet struck the desk above them, showering dust over Claire's hair. Dante turned, fired twice, and pulled her toward the rear corridor. They ran through rows of deposit boxes as smoke filled the chamber. At the end of the corridor, an attacker stepped from the shadows. Dante shoved Claire behind him. The man's blade caught Dante beneath the ribs before Matteo fired. Dante did not make a sound. He struck the attacker, seized the ledger, and continued moving. Only when they reached the armored vehicle beneath Lexington Avenue did Claire see the dark stain spreading across his shirt. "You're bleeding. It is shallow. Take off the jacket. Claire." That was not a suggestion. Matteo looked away, concealing what might have been amusement. Inside the SUV, Claire pressed folded gauze from the emergency kit against Dante's side. He watched her hands. She felt the power in his body held rigid beneath her touch, the heat of his skin through the torn fabric, and the dangerous attention in his eyes. "You could have been killed for a piece of film," he said. "You went back for a photograph during a shooting. That was my daughter, and these records are the path to her." His gaze moved to her face. "You protect people you have never met. I protect what belongs to them." Dante lifted one hand. His fingers stopped beside a loose strand of hair near her cheek. He almost brushed it away. Then his hand fell. Claire's breath caught despite herself. His voice lowered. "Do not make me watch you risk your life again. You don't get to ask that, after using your body as a shield. I can survive what would kill you. You are bleeding on a $12,000 seat." For the first time, Dante Valenti smiled. It was brief and unexpected, transforming his severe face into something dangerously compelling. Claire hated how strongly she felt it. Then the smile vanished. "So," he said, "you researched the price of the car. I'm a banker." By noon, every financial network in the country carried Claire's photograph. The headlines described her as the mysterious manager who had granted Dante Valenti access to a secret vault hours before he acquired Crown Meridian Bank. Some called her his accomplice. Others called her his mistress. One cable host spent 7 minutes analyzing footage of Dante placing his coat around Claire's shoulders as they left Grand Central. Claire watched from the mansion library with growing disbelief. "They are discussing my body language." Dante stood near the window, speaking with attorneys. "They have nothing else. One commentator says I have been secretly involved with you for months." His eyes shifted toward her. "You appear offended." "I am professionally offended, not personally." Claire muted the television. "Do not enjoy this." "I am not." "You almost smiled." "I did not." She raised an eyebrow. Dante returned his attention to the window, but she saw the faint tension at the corner of his mouth. A federal convoy arrived 20 minutes later. Special Agent Owen Shaw of the Treasury Department entered the library with 2 attorneys and a warrant authorizing the seizure of Crown Meridian's trust records. Owen had once been engaged to Claire. They had separated 3 years earlier because he believed her loyalty to the bank mattered more than their future. Claire had believed his devotion to federal service left no space for hers. Neither had been entirely wrong. Owen stopped when he saw Dante beside her. "Claire." "Owen." Dante looked from one to the other. "You know him." "We were engaged," Owen answered. Dante's expression did not visibly change. The room seemed to grow colder anyway. Owen placed the warrant on the table. "Crown Meridian is under federal investigation. Claire, you need to come with us." "She is not leaving," Dante said. "She is a material witness. She was nearly murdered by the bank's security team. That is precisely why she requires federal protection." Claire stood. "I can answer questions here." Owen looked at the armed men beyond the library doors. "This is not protection. It is custody." Dante took one slow step forward. "No one in this house is preventing her from leaving." Owen turned to Claire. "Then come with me." The choice should have been easy. Owen represented law, oversight, and the orderly world Claire understood. Dante represented danger, surveillance, and a criminal empire built beyond any system she trusted. But Malcolm Voss had operated inside the law. The assassins at the bank had worn licensed security uniforms, and Dante had put himself between Claire and every bullet without asking whether saving her benefited him. "I'm staying until the hearing," she said. Owen's disappointment was immediate. Dante's reaction was almost invisible, but Claire saw his shoulders loosen. Owen lowered his voice. "Do you trust him?" "No." Dante's eyes narrowed. Claire continued. But I trust what I have seen him do. Owen collected the warrant. Malcolm Voss has agreed to cooperate with us. Claire stared at him. Then you are already compromised. Dante's attention sharpened with approval. Owen looked wounded. Claire, Voss says Valenti manufactured the adoption records to seize the Astor Trust. Malcolm ordered me to violate the vault agreement before Dante bought the bank. He claims you misunderstood. I did not. Owen moved closer. You once told me institutions were more reliable than individuals. I was wrong. Dante's gaze settled on her. The admission cost Claire more than she wanted either man to know. After Owen left, she turned toward Dante. Do not say anything. I had no intention. You look satisfied. I am considering whether your former fiancé understands how close he came to being removed from my house. That sounds like jealousy. It is risk assessment. He did not threaten me. He asked you to leave with him. Claire crossed her arms. And? Dante's silence lasted too long. She stepped closer. And? His eyes held hers with unnerving intensity. When I saw you considering it, he said quietly, I disliked the possibility more than reason allowed. The restraint in his voice made the confession more intimate than if he had touched her. Claire's pulse shifted. You barely know me. I know you refused me when everyone else surrendered. I know you return for evidence while men shoot at you. I know you are frightened every time you challenge me, and you do it anyway. He moved nearer. I know the sound of your footsteps outside my study. I know you push your hair behind your left ear when you are analyzing a lie. I know you have not eaten since yesterday because you believe hunger is less urgent than the truth. Claire's breath caught. Dante lifted his hand. His fingers hovered beside her cheek. Again, he stopped before touching her. Is that how you study every potential threat? She whispered. No. The word carried no hesitation. The space between them narrowed. Claire could feel the heat of his body, the dangerous control in the way he held himself away from her. Then Matteo entered. We found the woman who moved Amelia out of St. Aurelia Hospital. Dante's hand dropped. The moment shattered, leaving both of them too aware of what had almost happened. Underscore. Dr. Hannah Ward lived in a narrow townhouse on Roosevelt Island, beneath a different name. She was 71, with white hair, sharp eyes, and no patience for Dante's power. When he entered her sitting room, she pointed to the chair opposite her. You may sit. Dante remained standing. Claire sat first. After a moment, Dante joined her. Hannah looked at Claire. You are the banker. I'm the manager who opened Isabella's vault. You were not supposed to open it for another 4 years. Dante's restraint tightened. Where is my daughter? Hannah studied him, still alive because people with less power than you knew when not to demand answers. Dante rose. Claire caught his wrist. The contact stopped him. His skin was warm beneath her fingers. His attention shifted immediately from Hannah to Claire. Sit down, she said. No one else in the room breathed. Dante looked at her hand around his wrist. Then he sat. Hannah's expression softened slightly. Isabella came to me 2 weeks before the birth, she said. She had discovered the Astor Trust was being drained. Malcolm Voss controlled the transfer certifications. 4 families were preparing for war over the remaining assets. Why did she not tell me? Dante asked. She did. His face hardened. No. She sent 3 letters through Crown Meridian's private courier service. Malcolm intercepted them. Hannah opened a locked drawer and removed a small video player. The screen showed Isabella Valenti seated in a hospital room, visibly pregnant and exhausted. Dante became motionless. Dante, Isabella said from 14 years in the past, if you are seeing this, Malcolm has already betrayed us. Claire watched grief enter Dante's face without breaking it. I created the Astor Trust to force the families into legitimacy, Isabella continued. When Amelia turns 18, the trust will release every transaction to federal regulators and transfer control of the bank to its employees and depositors. Malcolm cannot allow that. Neither can the families profiting from him. Isabella looked directly into the camera. Our daughter must disappear long enough to survive them. The recording ended. Dante stared at the blank screen. You let me bury her. Hannah's eyes filled with pain. Isabella believed grief would make your reaction convincing. She believed wrong. She believed you would burn the city searching for Amelia and lead Malcolm directly to her. Dante stood and walked toward the window. Outside, snow drifted over the East River. "Where is she?" he asked again. Hannah looked toward Claire. "Malcolm filed the death petition because Amelia's location has been compromised. She has been moved twice in the last month." Claire leaned forward. "The red coat, the drawing, were those hers?" "Yes." Isabella placed the infant photograph in the vault. "I added the coat when Amelia was 6. "Why use my credentials?" Claire asked. "I did not." Hannah's expression changed. "Malcolm selected you." Claire felt the answer before Hannah gave it. "Why?" "Because your reputation would protect the false audits. But there was another reason. You reviewed the St. Catherine Foundation during your first year at Crown Meridian. You discovered irregular adoption fees." Claire remembered the case. The files had vanished before she could complete her report. Malcolm had told her the foundation was under sealed federal review. "You copied the records," Hannah said. "You stored them in an off-site compliance archive. Malcolm could not find the access code." "I don't remember an access code." "You created it from a customer protection phrase your father used." Claire's chest tightened. Her father had repeated one sentence whenever creditors called their apartment. "A promise is not a payment until it clears." She whispered the words. Hannah nodded. "That phrase opens the final archive. It contains Amelia's complete identity chain." Dante turned from the window. "Where?" Before Hannah could answer, the front windows exploded inward. Dante reached Claire first. He drove her to the floor and covered her as glass swept across the room. Mateo fired toward the opposite building. Armed men entered through the rear door. Hannah pulled a small pistol from beneath her chair. "You took long enough," she muttered. The room filled with smoke and shattered plaster. Dante dragged Claire behind a stone fireplace. His hand covered the back of her head. His body pressed protectively along hers, every muscle rigid with controlled violence. An attacker appeared in the doorway. Dante fired over Claire's shoulder. Another round struck the wall. "Stay here," he ordered. "Where are you going?" "To end this." He moved into the smoke before she could stop him. Claire heard gunfire, breaking furniture, and Hannah shouting instructions to Mateo. Then silence. Dante returned with blood along his knuckles and murder in his eyes. "Are you hurt?" Claire shook her head. He searched her face, shoulders, and hands, as though he did not trust the answer. Hannah emerged from behind the overturned chair. "They know Amelia is in Manhattan." Dante faced her. "You will tell me where." "She is being brought to the presumption hearing." Claire stared at Hannah. "Why?" "Malcolm's trustees found her adoptive guardian. They threatened 3 other children under her care. Amelia agreed to appear because she believes surrendering herself will protect them." Dante's composure fractured. "She is walking into the bank." "Yes." "When?" "Tomorrow night." He turned toward the door. Claire caught his sleeve. "You cannot storm the hearing. I own the bank." "The trust hearing is supervised by federal officers and private trustees. If you arrive with armed men, Malcolm will claim Amelia is an imposter you created. I am not leaving my daughter inside that building. Then we prove who she is before you take her." Dante looked down at Claire's hand. "What if proof costs her life?" "Then we use Malcolm's rules against him before he can." His eyes returned to hers. For the first time, Dante Valenti did not command. He trusted. "Tell me what you need." _ The final compliance archive was hidden inside a climate-controlled document facility in Queens. Claire accessed it shortly after midnight, using the phrase her father had once repeated across a kitchen table covered in unpaid bills. Inside were scanned birth records, DNA samples, courier logs, and security footage showing Malcolm Voss carrying an infant from St. Aurelia Hospital 11 minutes before the fire. There was also a surveillance file on Claire. 6 months of photographs. Claire leaving her apartment. Claire buying coffee. Claire sitting alone in a restaurant. Claire entering Crown Meridian. One image had been taken from inside the lobby of Dante's mansion the previous night. She slowly turned toward him. You knew. Dante stood on the opposite side of the archive room. His silence answered first. How long have you been watching me? 3 months. The betrayal struck harder than Claire expected. You knew my credentials were connected to the trust. I received an anonymous copy of one certification, and you said nothing. I did not know whether you were involved, so you followed me. I investigated you. You photographed my home. I needed to know who approached you. Claire held up one of the images. You let me believe we met by accident. We met because you refused to open the vault, but you entered that bank already knowing my name. Dante's jaw tightened. Yes, every intimate moment rearranged itself in Claire's mind. The attention in his eyes, his knowledge of her habits, the way he had described her movements. She had mistaken surveillance for fascination. Perhaps some of it had become fascination, but the foundation remained deception. You told me you knew how I pushed my hair back when I saw a lie. I learned that after meeting you. How am I supposed to know the difference? He moved toward her. Claire stepped back. Dante stopped instantly. Pain flashed behind his expression and disappeared. I suspected you helped hide my daughter. And now? Now I know you were used. But you still tracked my phone. Put cameras outside my room. Decided where I would sleep and who could speak to me. I kept you alive. You controlled me. Yes. The honesty angered her more. Dante's voice lowered. I do not know how to protect something without controlling the danger around it. I am not something. No. He looked at her with a severity that left no room for misunderstanding. You are the only person in 14 years who has made me afraid of what I might lose before I ever possessed it. Claire's heart twisted. That is not love, Dante. That is fear with ownership attached. He absorbed the words without defending himself. What do you want from me? The choice you keep taking. He nodded once. Then he removed a small tracking device from the lining of her coat and crushed it beneath his shoe. He placed her phone, passport, and apartment keys on the table. You are free to leave. Claire stared at him. Just like that? No. His expression remained controlled, but his voice roughened. Nothing about this is simple. She gathered the evidence drive. I'm delivering these records to Owen Shaw. Dante's eyes darkened. He did not stop her. That restraint hurt almost as much as the betrayal. Claire left the archive alone. She made it 3 blocks before Malcolm Voss's car pulled beside the curb. The rear door opened. Malcolm sat inside, wearing a gray overcoat and the patient expression of the man who had once taught her how to survive an executive boardroom. Claire, he said, you have been manipulated by a criminal. She remained on the sidewalk. You forged my certifications. I protected your career. You used it to hide a child. I kept 5 families from going to war. By stealing billions from her trust. By distributing enough money to maintain peace. Claire looked at the driver. Crown Meridian Security. You ordered the attack. I ordered the recovery of private bank property. Valenti's men escalated. They aimed at me. Malcolm sighed. Get in the car. I will explain everything. No. The second man approached from behind. Claire felt the injection before she saw him. As the street tilted beneath her, she heard Malcolm's voice from very far away. You were always such a principled girl. That is why your signature was perfect. _ Dante knew Claire had been taken, because the city became unbearable without her in it. He stood in the Queen's archive, staring at the empty doorway for 17 minutes after she left. Matteo entered, carrying a phone. We lost her signal. She removed the tracker. The phone stopped moving on 47th Street. We found it beneath a parked car. Dante's world narrowed. He saw Claire in the bank corridor beneath Gunfire. Claire kneeling beside him in the SUV, pressing gauze against his side. Claire catching his wrist in Hannah Ward's sitting room. Claire stepping away when she learned the truth. He had survived his wife's death by turning grief into control. Now control had cost him the woman he could no longer imagine losing. Find the traffic cameras, he said. Malcolm owns the private network around the block. Then take it. Matteo hesitated. The trust hearing begins in 6 hours. I do not care. If we move against Voss now, the families may declare war. Dante looked at him. Let them. Crown Meridian will collapse. I bought the bank for Claire. Matteo understood. Dante continued, his voice terrifyingly calm. If saving her requires me to bury it beneath Manhattan, there will be nothing left by morning. At 4:12 a.m., a 1-cent transfer appeared in an abandoned Valenti account. The account had not been used in 14 years. The payment memo contained 4 characters, V0MV. Matteo stared at the screen. Vault 0. Malcolm Voss. Dante was already moving. Claire had sent the transfer through Crown Meridian's internal settlement system before Malcolm confiscated her phone. She had known Dante would be watching the accounts. She had used his obsession as a rescue signal. For the first time, he was grateful she understood him. Vault 0 lay beneath Crown Meridian's main branch. It did not appear on modern blueprints. The chamber had been built during the Second World War to hold government gold and confidential identity records. Malcolm had restored it as a private meeting room for the Astor trustees. By 7 that evening, snow had closed half the streets around Midtown. Crown Meridian's marble lobby glowed with television lights. Federal observers, trust attorneys, and representatives of 5 criminal families gathered beneath the chandeliers. The proceeding was being recorded to establish legal proof that Amelia Valenti was dead. Instead, Malcolm intended to make her die in front of witnesses who would never know her name. Claire woke inside Vault 0 with her wrists secured to a chair. Across from her sat a 14-year-old girl wearing a black dress and silver star earrings. She had Dante's dark eyes. The resemblance was so immediate that Claire forgot the pain in her head. The girl watched her cautiously. "You're Claire Donovan." Claire tested the restraints. "How do you know me? I saw the news. What is your name?" "Mia Ward." Claire looked at the silver stars. "What did your mother call you?" The girl's composure trembled. "Amelia." Malcolm stood beside the vault door. "You see the problem," he said. "One frightened girl, one compromised bank manager, and one violent man prepared to manufacture a miracle." Claire looked at him. "You carried her from the hospital. I carried an asset out of a fire. You killed Isabella." "No." Isabella returned to the maternity wing after the evacuation. Sentiment made her irrational. Love made her brave. Malcolm's face hardened. Love created this disaster. The Astor Trust was designed to destroy every financial relationship holding New York's families together. Isabella believed transparency would civilize criminals, and you believed theft would control them. I was correct for 14 years. He placed a death certification on the table. You will authenticate the adoption records as fraudulent. Amelia will renounce any claim to the trust. In return, the other children under Hannah Ward's protection remain safe. Amelia spoke for the first time. "He's lying." Malcolm glanced at her. "Your adoptive mother has encouraged defiance. She taught me that men who need children to obey are never as powerful as they pretend." Claire almost smiled. Dante's daughter had inherited more than his eyes. Malcolm loosened one of Claire's wrists and placed a pen in front of her. "Sign." Claire looked toward the small surveillance camera above the door. "Is the hearing watching?" "They will watch the portion I provide. Then place the document where they can see it." Malcolm hesitated. "You want my certification to appear voluntary," Claire said. "A signature outside the camera frame will be challenged." His vanity overcame his caution. He moved the document beneath the camera. Claire signed. Malcolm looked satisfied until he read the name. Amelia Isabella Valenti. Beneficiary confirmed. His face changed. Claire drove the pen into the emergency release button beneath the table. Alarms exploded through the vault. The camera feed switched automatically to every screen in the marble lobby above them. Amelia's face appeared before federal observers, trustees, reporters, and representatives of the 5 families. Claire looked directly into the lens. "My name is Claire Donovan, acting custodian of Vault 7A. The beneficiary of the Astor Trust is alive. Malcolm Voss falsified her death, forged 6 years of compliance records, and ordered armed attacks on Crown Meridian employees." Malcolm struck her across the face. Amelia lunged at him. The vault door began closing. Beyond it, Gunfire erupted through the lower corridor. Dante had arrived. Malcolm dragged Amelia backward and activated the fire suppression system. Steel bolts sealed the vault. A warning light flashed. Oxygen displacement. In 3 minutes. Claire pulled Amelia behind the central table. Is there another exit? No. Outside the sealed door, something struck the steel with enough force to shake the walls. Dante's voice came through the intercom. Claire. She reached the panel. We're alive. The silence on the other end lasted half a second. It contained more emotion than Dante had ever allowed into his voice. Move away from the door. You cannot blow it. The suppression lines run through the frame. I will open it. Malcolm changed the combination. Then tell me how to defeat it. Claire examined the old mechanical diagram mounted beside the emergency panel. The vault had 2 synchronized wheels, one outside, one inside. They required matching rotations. She understood why Malcolm had brought her. Only a banker trained in obsolete Crown Meridian systems could open it. Dante, place your hand on the outer wheel. It is there. Claire gripped the inner mechanism. Turn right until I say stop. The air vents hissed. Amelia began coughing. Dante turned. Claire listened to the tumblers through the steel. Stop. Left, slowly. Gunfire continued outside. Someone struck the intercom panel. Dante grunted but did not release the wheel. You're hurt, Claire said. Continue. Dante, Claire, his voice lowered. I am not leaving you behind this door. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she turned the wheel. The first tumbler fell. Right again. 20 degrees. Outside, Matteo shouted that Malcolm was escaping toward the roof. Dante did not move. The second tumbler released. Only one remained. The oxygen warning changed to 60 seconds. Amelia slid to the floor. Claire held her upright with one arm. Dante, listen to me. The final turn has resistance. Do not force it. I understand. If the pin breaks, the door seals permanently. I understand. Left. Very slowly. The wheel moved. Claire felt the mechanism catch. Stop. The air grew thin. Her vision blurred. On the other side of the steel, Dante placed his palm against the door. Claire pressed hers to the same place. They could not feel each other through 18 inches of reinforced metal. Still, neither moved. I should have told you everything, he said through the intercom. This is not the time. There may be no other time. There will be. I watched you because I suspected you. I kept watching because the hours when I could see you became the only hours I did not think about the dead. Claire's throat tightened. Dante, I do not know how to love gently. Then learn. The final tumbler clicked. The vault door opened 6 inches. Dante forced his hands into the gap. Blood darkened one sleeve of his white shirt. A bullet had torn across his shoulder, but he drove the door wider through sheer strength, while Matteo and 2 guards pulled from behind. Claire pushed Amelia through first. Dante caught his daughter. For 14 years he had carried the memory of a burned casket. Now a living girl collapsed against his chest. He looked down at her face and became entirely still. Amelia opened her eyes. You're Dante. His arms tightened carefully around her. Yes. You're supposed to be frightening. I have been told. She glanced toward Claire. She isn't frightened of you. Dante looked at the woman emerging from the vault. She is. She simply refuses to let fear make her decisions. Claire stumbled. Dante transferred Amelia to Matteo and caught Claire before she hit the floor. He lifted her against his chest. Her arms moved instinctively around his neck. You came, she whispered. His expression broke at last. Not into softness, into something rawer, something terrified and devoted. There is no place in this city you could be taken where I would not come for you. Above them, Malcolm Voss crossed the snow-covered roof toward a waiting helicopter. Dante carried Claire into the marble lobby while federal officers secured the trustees and family representatives. Owen Shaw approached. Voss is on the roof. Dante looked toward the stairwell. Every violent instinct in him demanded pursuit. Malcolm had stolen his daughter, killed Isabella, used Claire, and built 14 years of power from their grief. Dante lowered Claire carefully onto a bench. She saw the choice in his face. Go, she said. His eyes remained on her. "If I leave, I'll be here." He looked toward Amelia, who stood beneath Mateo's coat, surrounded by federal agents. Dante had spent his life believing protection meant destroying every threat personally. Now 2 people needed him to remain something other than a weapon. He turned to Owen. "Arrest Voss." Owen stared at him. "You are letting him go?" "No." Dante removed the encrypted evidence drive from his pocket and handed it to Claire. "I am letting the law prove whether it deserves her faith." Owen ran toward the roof with the federal team. Malcolm's helicopter never lifted. Crown Meridian's own emergency systems locked the roof gates and disabled the fuel line. Claire had activated the security hold when she sent the 1-cent transfer. Malcolm Voss was arrested beneath the bank's gold clock at 7:43 p.m. The 5 families abandoned him before midnight. Without the hidden accounts he controlled, their alliance collapsed. Without Claire's forged certifications, the Astor Trust remained intact. And without the presumption of death ruling, Emilia Valenti became the legal owner of the empire Malcolm had spent 14 years stealing. Dante had bought the bank to open one vault. Claire had used it to expose every secret inside him. The weeks after Malcolm's arrest changed Manhattan in ways no one expected. Crown Meridian remained closed for 12 days, while federal investigators seized records from 3 underground archives. 4 board members were indicted. 2 police commanders resigned. The St. Catherine Family Foundation was exposed as a financial identity network used to hide witnesses, heirs, and children whose legal existence threatened powerful estates. Some had been protected, others had been erased. Claire testified for 11 hours. She refused Dante's attorneys, accepted independent counsel, and corrected every federal agent who described her as Valenti's employee. "I work for Crown Meridian," she said. "Mr. Valenti temporarily owns Crown Meridian. Those are not the same thing." Dante watched from the back of the hearing room. He did not interrupt. That restraint became the first evidence that he had listened. Emilia returned to Hannah Ward, who had survived the Roosevelt Island attack, with a fractured wrist and considerable anger. Dante did not demand custody. He asked for one meeting. Emilia agreed to 30 minutes in a public conservatory. Claire waited outside the glass doors while father and daughter sat beneath winter trees. At first, they barely spoke. Then Dante placed the cracked photograph on the table. Emilia removed one silver star earring and set it beside the image. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Afterward, Dante found Claire near the frozen fountain. "She wants to continue living with Hannah. How do you feel about that?" "I want to place 50 men around the house and move them both to a fortified estate." Claire waited. "I assigned 2 guards," he admitted. "Did Emilia agree?" "1. That is progress." Dante stood beside her beneath the gray winter sky. The bandage beneath his coat pulled when he moved, but he had ignored every physician's instruction except the ones Claire repeated. "You have not returned to the mansion," he said. "I have an apartment. It still has a damaged window. It has a new window. The building's security is inadequate. I changed the locks. I own the company that manufactures them." Claire looked at him. Dante exhaled slowly. "I hear the problem now." She almost smiled. He moved closer but did not touch her. "I transferred Crown Meridian's controlling shares into the Astor Trust this morning." Claire stared at him. "You gave up the bank?" "It was never why I bought it." "What about your investment?" $4 billion is a manageable loss. You are impossible. You refuse to open a vault. You mention that frequently. It remains the most expensive no I have ever heard. The warmth between them deepened, but Claire did not allow it to erase what remained unresolved. "You watched me without permission." "Yes." "You decided you knew what was best for me." "Yes." "You frightened me." His jaw tightened. "I know. And I still trusted you inside that vault." Dante's eyes darkened with restrained emotion. "I know that too." Claire stepped nearer. "I don't need you to become harmless. I could not. I need you to understand that protecting me does not mean owning every choice around me." He studied her face. "I am trying. Trying is not the same as succeeding." No. The honesty disarmed her. Dante lifted his hand. As he had twice before, his fingers stopped beside her cheek. This time he waited. Claire understood the question. She leaned into his palm. His breath changed. He touched her with extraordinary care, as though the woman who had faced gunfire beside him might still be damaged by one uninvited gesture. Claire covered his hand with hers. "Do not confuse permission with surrender," she whispered. "I would never make that mistake with you." He bent his head slowly. The kiss was restrained at first, almost cautious, carrying every interrupted moment and every word they had denied themselves. Then Claire gripped the front of his coat. Dante's control broke just enough. His other arm circled her waist, drawing her against him with a possessive force that stopped the instant she tensed. When she did not pull away, he kissed her again. Deeper, warmer, no longer uncertain but still asking. Snow began falling around them. For once, no guards approached. No cameras recorded them. No contract, threat, or public scandal forced the moment into existence. Claire chose him. Dante understood the difference. 6 months later, Crown Meridian reopened beneath a new charter. The Astor Trust transferred 40% of the bank's voting shares to an employee and depositor council. A restitution fund was created for families harmed by Malcolm's identity network. Claire became Crown Meridian's chief integrity officer. She accepted the position only after removing Dante from the committee that determined her compensation. He called the decision insulting. She called it compliance. Amelia visited him every Sunday. Some weeks they spoke for hours. Other weeks they sat in silence while she worked on astronomy assignments, and Dante read reports beside her. He never asked her to call him father. The first time she did, 3 months later, Claire watched him turn toward the window so Amelia would not see his face. Hannah continued raising her. Dante continued learning that love could survive without possession. He did not learn quickly. He learned honestly. On the first snowy evening of the following winter, Claire remained at Crown Meridian after closing. The marble lobby was quiet. The repaired gold clock showed 9:17, the exact time she had refused to open the vault 1 year earlier. Dante entered alone. No guards, no attorneys, no emergency acquisition team. He wore a black overcoat dusted with snow. Claire looked up from the closing report. "The bank is closed. I know the owner." "The owner is a 14-year-old girl who has school tomorrow. Then perhaps the chief integrity officer can make an exception." Claire closed the file. "What do you want?" Dante placed a brass key on her desk. "Vault 7A. She looked at him. "What did you put inside?" "Open it. Do you have valid authorization?" He handed her a document. Claire examined every page. Dante waited without complaint. Finally, she rose. "Acceptable." They walked together through the steel corridor. Claire inserted the bank key. Dante used Isabella's key. The door opened. The child's red coat rested inside a glass preservation case. Beside it stood the original photograph of Dante holding his newborn daughter. A second photograph had been added. Dante stood in the center. Amelia was beside him, attempting not to smile. Claire stood on his other side, one hand resting against his chest. There were no financial documents, no weapons, no hidden records, only a handwritten card. Claire lifted it. "Nothing that matters should ever be hidden from you again." She turned. Dante stood in the vault doorway, suddenly less certain than he had been beneath gunfire. "I cannot promise you an ordinary life," he said. "I have never asked for one. I cannot promise there will be no danger. I know. I can promise that your choices will remain yours, even when I hate them. That sounds difficult for you. It is unbearable." Claire smiled. Dante stepped closer. "I spent most of my life believing devotion was measured by what a man was willing to destroy." His eyes held hers. "You taught me it is also measured by what he is willing to release." Claire's throat tightened. "What are you releasing?" "The right to decide what happens next." He placed no ring in her hand. He offered no contract, command, or guarded destination. He simply waited. Claire looked at the red coat, the 2 photographs, and the empty space left beside them for whatever came after. Then she took Dante's hand. "What happens next," she said, "is that you walk me home. His fingers closed around hers. The car is outside. We're walking. It is snowing. You bought a bank during a blizzard. I think you'll survive 6 blocks. Dante looked deeply offended. Claire pulled him toward the corridor. Behind them, Vault 7A remained open. They crossed the silent marble lobby and stepped onto Madison Avenue beneath falling snow. The black SUV waited at the curb. Dante dismissed it with one gesture. They walked instead. The city moved around them. Bright windows, midnight traffic, strangers hurrying home, unaware that Manhattan's most feared mafia boss had once bought an entire bank because one woman told him no. He had believed the vault would return his daughter. He had not known it would also reveal the one woman capable of standing between him and every darkness he carried. Claire tightened her hand around his. Dante looked down at her, no longer cold enough to hide what she had become to him. Not an asset, not a possession. Not another life locked behind walls for him to protect. She was the woman he trusted, with every door he could not open alone. And for the first time in his life, Dante Valenti walked through the snow, owning nothing that mattered. He was simply loved, and trusted enough to love her back.